Okay, so stitch and scrump. Gonna start with stitch. This is a little bit of a more complicated kit situation than the usual ones. There's some new stitches and things. So there's this little bag. The pattern was inside it. Fluff. More yarn in there. A thing I noticed immediately is the felt stickers, which I honestly might not use anyway because, or if I did, I would sew them on, I don't know, are not cut. Like, they're given these indentations to pop out and they're done really poorly, which is kind of like pretty disappointing. I mean, they're a huge part of the face, so, and the design, so like, at least on mine. A thing that I like is that these little strands of small things, or all the yarn seems to be labeled with the proper color, which is nice. So this is a different pattern that we don't need right now. That can go away. And here is our many things of papers. I'm just going to take this really slow. This is a list of terms you need to know, stitches, there's descriptions, but we will go over them anyway. And we are going to start here with the stitch. So I need the berry blue yarn, so I'm going to take a moment and find that. Okay, so here we are with the berry blue. It looks like they have, at least on this one, the center yarn pulled out for us. So let me see if I can find this end. Does it ever end, or is this tucked in? Oh, this is this piece. Okay, so with things like this, you can use this one that's available. That will unroll the little, what is this, a mini cake? It'll unroll it as you go and your yarn will tumble around and such like. So usually I try to find the loop from the center instead, which is hit or miss, but you know, just, oh look, they put it in a bundle right there. Trying to find that from the center. A timer might go off at some point during this. I have bread in the oven. Okay, here's the end. Here's our hook. Okay, this is what we got. So to start off, we're starting with, this is the berry blue. There's our little tag, berry blue. And we're starting with the head. We're gonna make 6 single crochet in a magic ring. In general, as I'm working this, I'll be holding this. The thing facing us, the side facing, will be the right side, and the side that will be on the bottom will be the wrong side. You can put a stitch marker in the top of your work when we start if you want to keep track for that. But usually, you know, you can tell by looking, but just in case, if it will help you keep track. So magic ring. Now, this is like an adjustable loop also. And this is how I do it. So I bring this end of my yarn around my fingers. And when you're working, once you have like your slip knot or whatever in, the piece that's going from like your work to the end over here is your tail. And then the piece that's connected to the rest of your yarn is your working yarn. So I'm going to take my tail and wrap it around my fingers like this, except I want it to stay. So wrap it around my fingers. The one on this side is going to the working yarn and to the ball. And I just wrapped around and I'm holding it down. Now I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to go over or under, sorry, this loop right here. And I'm going to grab this second loop that connects to the working yarn, hook it with the hook and pull it under. bring my hook around, and as I bring my hook around, I'm gonna come in here and pinch this bottom thing with this hand. This is so I can get into switch and get into position. Bring my fingers out, and then grab this working yarn and do a slip stitch. So now, even though I just put them in this hand, I'm gonna switch this loop and this loop and this tail, or this side of the loop, both sides in the tail into this hand. And now do a just like chain. So push back against that yarn, rotate your hook so that you have that yarn caught in the hook, and pull through the loop on your hook, like so. Then you can release the bottom because it's secured now, and it will unrotate. And now you have an adjustable loop. I know people have trouble with this because it's a new thing. I'm going to do it again, and I do have a separate video going over this, but I'm going to take that tail, wrap it around my fingers like so. Okay, this is my working yarn connected to the ball. This is the tail. And it's not twisted or anything back here. It's just two parallel lines. Under the first yarn, grab that second piece, bring it under, and I rotate. Switch to this hand so I can get this hand free. And then I pinch back and slip stitch, then release. Okay, now we have this to work into. And when we work into this, we will work into this loop around this piece too. So I'm not going to put my crochets under here without this piece of yarn up here. I am going to hold them together and put my hook through here so that both of them are going to be inside the crochets that I'm making. Now, we are going to do 6 single crochet. You can certainly put a stitch marker, stitch marker, in your first stitch to keep track, at least for the beginning here. I usually, you'll see, but just so you can differentiate. So to make our first single crochet, we are going to just put our hook into this ring. And I'm holding both loops of here together with my left hand here. And I'm using this finger to keep this from rotating, just so that it's just easy to keep everything kind of controlled. So I've inserted into that loop. Now I'm going to grab that yarn with the hook, pull it through so that I now have 2 loops on my hook. Now I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to press back against that yarn, rotate the hook so I catch the yarn in the hook, and pull through both loops on my hook like that. Now we've just made 1 single crochet, and this right here, not this loop on our hook, this loop here and this loop here are the top of our first single crochet. So I will take my stitch marker, and let me do it, let's see. I'll hold it like this so you can hopefully see. This is the loop on my hook. It's this and this that I'm sliding this under. Right here. I've had a problem with, I don't know what it is, but recently this has been slightly fuzzy, and I don't know how to do anything about that, so hopefully it's not doing that right now. The world may never know, except we probably will. So that's 1. We did 1. Now we're going to do 5 more for a total of 6. Now your tension, I'm going to be tightening down the stitches a little bit as I go. You don't want to be too loose because then you may run out of yarn. So you want to try to have decently small, even stitches. So now I'm going to go back into the loop again, just like we just did. So back in. And then I'm going to pull another loop up, yarn over, pull through both loops on my hook for 2. And then this is, if you see me doing this or this, lifting this finger, that's me tightening it down a little. So that's 2. And again, I'm going to go in, yarn over, bring that yarn through. Now I got 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. That's 3. Insert, pull up a loop, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops for 4. Again for 5. And one more time for 6. So now from the beginning, you see our stitch marker shows us that these loops right here are our first stitch and that this little bit back here is not a stitch. And so we'll count these. You don't count the loop on your hook when you're counting stitches. Each of these sets of loops, each of these little V's is the top of a single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that we have those 6 in, and magic rings are one of the things that I get the most questions about, so I'm trying to go really slow and make sure that I'm answering things that are things I just do because I know, like making sure you work around this too, so that you can pull it tight. So now that we've done those, we're going to take this tail and we're going to pull. You can hold this to help you and see it'll tighten right up. If it doesn't tighten, you may have made some type of mistake or you may have caught a loop. You can always take it out and try it again. Some yarns are fuzzier than others and they don't want to be, it's like there's friction or something. They don't want to do that. So now you can see our stitches, the tops of our stitches are now kind of sort of laying on the top, but also a little bit down the side as well. So now we're going to start the second round. And in that round, we're going to be putting 2 single crochet in every one of these single crochets we just made. So starting with this one, and it can be a little bit difficult to get the hook under with the stitch marker still in. I do it in these just so visually you guys can see better where I'm going, but I'm gonna insert under here. And now that I'm inserted under both loops, you want to be under both loops. I'm going to take the stitch marker out. And now, instead of working into the circle like we were just doing, we're going to work our single crochets under both loops of the tops of our single crochets we just made. But everything else is the same. So now we've inserted and we're going to pull up a loop, pull it under both loops of that stitch. And now we're going to yarn over and pull through both of these loops. And that completes our first single crochet of the round. So we're going to put our stitch marker back in there. Now this is an increase, which means you're putting 2 single crochet into 1 stitch. So we're going to go back into the same hole that we just went through and put a second single crochet. So pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. That's 2 in 1. Now we'll move on to our next stitch, which is right here. I'm going to turn a lamp on. Let me give this a minute in case it needs it to adjust to the light. I don't know. Okay, so here's our next stitch right here. We just worked, here's the edge of the one that we just worked into. So now we're going to put 2 into here. So we're going to insert under both loops of this stitch, both loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. And we're going to put a second single crochet into the same spot. the next stitch right here. Insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook, insert into the same spot again, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. Next stitch right here, insert under both loops here, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook, into the same spot again, another single crochet in there. Now you can count these as you go. I'll count mine at the end, putting 2 in the next, and we're just doing this all the way around. Now at some point when we have a little bit more real estate here, we will tie this end off, because the circle can kind of widen a little or work itself a little loose. So we'll eventually tighten this down pretty good, tie it down, weave the end in. But for now, we're just gonna get us some more area. So now let's do a stitch count. I'm gonna lift this up and take this out so I can see better. We don't count this. So this is our last stitch that we just did. So I'm gonna count. Okay, so the GoPro just made a distress noise, and there's probably gonna be an awkward transition because I had to go check and see if it lost anything and whatevs. However and wherefore, it didn't seem to have lost much. So, I'll count this row. So lift this up, get this out of the way. This is, we don't count any of this loop, so starting here, I'll count around by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now this here, facing us, is right side. This is wrong side, and like I said, feel free to put a stitch marker like right in here, just sticking out this way, so that you can keep track of that. And I don't know if this was in the part that it got or didn't, but I will weave this tail in later and tie it off. But for now, we're gonna keep working. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna do this round 3. There's parentheses, and then after the parentheses there's an X and number. So in this case it's 6. We're gonna work what's in the parentheses in order, and then we're gonna repeat it until we've done it total the number of times of the number out here. So we're going to do a single crochet in one stitch, and then in the next stitch do an increase, and we're going to do that a total of 6 times around. So first I will insert under the 2 loops of this first stitch here. The stitch marker might be in the way for this one. Okay, take my stitch marker out, and now I'm going to complete this single crochet because we're starting with a single crochet. So grab that loop, lift it up, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both loops, and then put the stitch marker back right there in the first stitch. Now our increase, which is again 2 single crochet into 1 stitch, is going to go into this next stitch here. So under both loops of this stitch, we're going to insert under, do 1 single crochet, then insert again, same spot, put a second single crochet, and now we've completed the instructions in the bracket once. It gives us a total of 3 stitches in our current round. So now we're going to start over for the second time. So in the next unworked stitch here, I'm going to put 1 single crochet, and then in the next unworked stitch right here, I'm going to put an increase or 2 single crochet. And I'm going to continue that all the way around until we get back to the stitch marker. Now, when you're working in these parentheses or brackets like this, unless I say otherwise, you should end, your last one should be whatever the parentheses end on. So in this case, our last one should be an increase. We'll keep going around. So there's different ways that I count these sometimes. Sometimes I count them in sets of, so this makes 3 total. So I'll count 1, 2, 3. Or sometimes I'll count 1, 1, 2. It's whatever. However, you can keep track of what you're doing if you want to, of which one you're on. Now, speaking of which one you're on, really quick, this right here, you can see here, this corner and this corner of this stitch. This here has 2 loops. 1, 2. This is 1 single crochet into this stitch that goes through it, okay? So now over here, here's our corner, right? Like, it's right in there, corner. And then we got our other corner over here. And in between those 2, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. So this is our 2. It's easier to see once you get a little more work, so I'll show that again later. But just in general, if you're quickly checking and you're like, oh, how long ago did I do the increase? See if you can find those corners and count the loops that go around. See right here, I got 2. Right here, I got 4. And that'll help you figure it out. Like right here, where did I leave off? Well, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So continuing that around, 1, and then in our next one here, 2, 3, next one here, 1, I caught a loop that isn't supposed to be on the hook. 2. Try to get that sort of tucked back in. Get off. I don't know if you can even see it, but there's a loop right there that I want to sort of lay back down. Okay, that's better. I pushed it down. Alrighties. So there's 2 in that. So 1, 2. Oh, I'm in the middle of an increase. So insert back into there. Okay. And then our last set, single crochet into here, and into the last here, 2 single crochet. Okay. Now, the next round, similar, but we're doing 2 single crochets, like two stitches of single crochet. So 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then an increase or 2 single crochet in the next one. So these ones I won't always do all the way around, because once you do the first pattern, it's just repeated around until you're done. So I'm going to insert under that first stitch there, do that single crochet, put the stitch marker back. Okay, so I put my stitch marker back in the first stitch there, and I have 1 single crochet in the first stitch, and now I'm putting 1 single crochet in the next stitch here. And now in the next unworked stitch, I'm doing my increase. So 2 single crochet in here, 1 and then another in the same spot. So again, in the next stitch, 1 single crochet, in the next stitch, 1 single crochet, in the next stitch, 2 single crochet, and repeat that around until you get back to your stitch marker. So I'm going to finish that around and then I'll be back. All right, so here's the ends of that round 4, and round 5 is just another step up. So it's going to be single crochet, single crochet, single crochet, and then an increase in the next stitch. So 3 single crochets and then an increase. So I'll put in this first single crochet of the round, put my stitch marker back in. If you don't have stitch markers, you can use other things, bobby pins, bread twist ties, a piece of yarn that's a different color, anything to mark that stitch, so that you know which one you started with. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then in our next one here, the increase. So you want to repeat that all the way around until you get back to your stitch marker. So this is the last stitch you'll work into, and then I will be back. Okay, so that's the end of round 5. I've just noticed they don't give you stitch counts at the end of your round so that you can check. You can do the math, but it's nicer when there's stitch counts. But like if you start with 6, which you do, and then your next round is an increase 6 times, that's 12, because for each 1 stitch you're doing 2 stitches in the new round, so 2 times 6. And then the single crochet increase, if you take the 12 and like divide that, because in this one you'll have 6 single crochets and 6 increases, because it's a pattern of 2. So 12 divided by 2, 6 single crochets, and then 6 increases. So 6 times 2, 12. 12 plus 6, 18, and so on. If you want to do that, you certainly can. It's just a way to check your work. Like, I'm pretty familiar, so I kind of know the intervals decently. I just did a stitch count. I have 30. I'm supposed to have 30 at this point. But yeah, that's kind of an unfortunate thing, I think, as far as beginners go, because it's nice to have that count that you can check. Maybe I'll write them in. I don't know if that would be helpful or not, but it would be a lot of work. Anyways, round 6. So just finish that round. The next one is 1, 2, 3, 4, then increase. So single crochet in the first here, stitch marker back in. That's 1. This is 2, 3, 4, and then increase in the next. So 1, 2. So repeat that around. This is the last stitch here that you'll be working into before the stitch marker, and I'll be back. Okay, so that's end of round 6, and 7 is 5, single crochet and then the increase. So do the first stitch, put the stitch marker back. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the increase. So repeat around and I'll be back. Okay, so I'm done that round, and now that we have more work done, I'll show you again how to spot those increases. So as you go around, you have the 2 loops there, indicating that there's 1 single crochet worked there, and then next to it here we have these 4 loops worked in instead, and they kind of create a little bit of a bigger opening there. Like I can see the line of them here, the little openings that they leave, because they're bigger than, like, say over here, you know. But anyways, also if you're doing this, if your intervals are right, your increases will line up kind of like spokes or whatever, which is kind of cool. Okay, so now the next round and the rounds through 14, you're doing single crochet in each stitch around, which I only really demonstrate once per kit usually because it's very simple. And what I do is I don't know if the pencil will show up, but I just write out the numbers of each of the rounds that I am doing this for, so that I can mark them off as I go to help me keep track. So I'll demonstrate this first one, and then I'll do the rest off camera and come back after that. So I'll take out my stitch marker, put in my first single crochet here, put my stitch marker back, and this is just no increases, no decreases, nothing unusual, just each stitch around, 1 single crochet. Now sometimes when doing these rows, like when you're repeating them, you want to pay attention, because now that we're not increasing anymore and we're just working 1 single crochet, it's gonna cause this to curl, which is good. That's what we want. That's how we're shaping it. But what that results in over here is you might have to reach further, a little further for your stitches. Like here, instead of being like, you got to reach a little more to get to the stitch here. And sometimes with these rows, this little corner can seem bigger and trick you into thinking that it's a full stitch to work into, when it's not. So just be mindful of that and make sure you're finding the next stitch. You can check and see that your loops go around that bar there if you're not sure. But find that next stitch and put 1 in each around, and it'll probably be kind of at the corners where we had those increases. There's that slight bump to get around those, that you'll see it more. But just continuing, like here, I don't work into here, even though that looks about it's the same size as that one. This is my next unworked stitch, all the way around. And you just do this and mark off your round. Now you don't have to mark them off, I just find it much easier to keep track, especially if I'm gonna get up to do anything, or if I might get interrupted at all. Which, speaking of counting rounds, I'll show you how to count rounds. I don't think I've done that this kit yet. can make sure that you move your stitch marker each time. That's how you know where your rows beginning end, especially when you're doing one single crochet in each stitch around, because with the increased rows you can at least find your increases and your intervals, but once that ends and it's just all plain single crochet, you can lose your place really quickly if you're not using your stitch markers. I caught a little bit of a loop there, so okay, so here we are coming up at the end of 8, one single crochet in each stitch around. Then I will mark this off. Where did I put that pencil just now? Mark off 8 and then do the same thing for 9 all the way through 14 and then back for 15. Now your rounds, each of these little concentric circles here is a round. If you look very closely, you have this, you can kind of see where you have this center one and then you have this outer one. This is where that one starts spiraling out, where that second row started. But I just kind of pick whatever side and go from the center out. So this center circle is 1, and then each of these outward is 1 round. So this is 1, 2, covering the round I'm counting as I move, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I will do through 14 and be back. Okay, so here we are after 14 rounds. I'll do a quick count. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And I'm going to tie this end off and weave it in. Where did I put the needle, do you think? The answer was I hadn't gotten it out of the packaging yet. This is a different style with this being rounded on the end. That is intriguing. So since we started with a magic loop, we want to tie this down and weave it in a little. I'm gonna go under a loop here. So I'm gonna thread this through. You can do this first. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I'm gonna hold this so that when I pull this through, I can't pull it flat. Feed the needle through the loop. Tighten it down like that. And then just weave it around, come under a couple of stitches. This knobby end is weird. That's strange. I don't know if it's terrible, but it's unusual. Just to help it not like stick out. And then I can trim it to make it shorter if I want. How, like, it's round. It's literally bigger than, what is the purpose? Okay. So anyway, I say that's good enough. I'm just going to leave that there. And now normally I kind of do one piece at a time. But the next portion of this has a little bit of complicated stuff. It's got color changes and decreases and whatever. And it would take me too long to do that. And I I'd rather get the beginning up. So I'm going to stop this one here, post this beginning one, and then do the rest of the head next time, and probably start on the body as well. So anyway, here's where we are so far. I hope this is helpful, and should be back pretty soon with the rest of the head.